If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends as we're going to be chatting it up with Andrew Caley of Covers, who does an amazing job taking a look at this wonderful game of baseball and really covers it all over there at Covers. We're going to be chatting with him about what we've seen out of the AL East thus far this season. We're going to be talking about the Toronto Blue Jays, the ups and downs that they've been experiencing, and just a little bit in general of what he's noticed from the first month plus of the baseball season as well. So that's coming up in segment number 2 in the final segment. Gonna get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Saturday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at Jude_D1. Keep in mind that RCM naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any of those Twitter/X questions today, but we have everything powered by Edge Boost. Over at Edge Boost, they make sure that bettors are able to access their funds 24/7, 365 in leap years, 366 days of the year. They make sure that all of your gambling-related transactions are approved. You earn cashbacks as you do utilize Edge Boost. And over at edgeboost.bet, type in the promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll give you a $1 match on your first $25 deposit. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Friday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Philadelphia Phillies got the job done by kind of 3-2 over the Arizona Diamondbacks. For the Snakes, Merrill Kelly, a relatively solid start, gives up 1 run over the course of 5 innings, and then from there, Jalen Beeks, along with Juan Murillo, were able to give you a scoreless inning, but you had 2 solo runs given up by Jose Castillo that really cost the team the game, as going deep for the Philadelphia Phillies, Max Kepler, 4th home run season, Kyle Schwarber with a Schwarbomb, his 10th home run season, and Jesus Luzardo continues to be rock solid. Did allow 9 hits in 5 1/3 innings, but only surrenders 2 runs as the Snakes stranded 7 men on base, and then from there, the bullpen went to work. Tanner Banks, Jordan Romano, Jose Alvarado, all led to scoreless inning, and Matt Strom was able to give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. For the Kansas City Royals, they continue to be one of the most rough offenses out there in baseball. 3-0, they're shut out by the Baltimore Orioles as Michael Wacha, not great, not terrible, 3 runs allowed in 6 1/3 innings. He avoided the dying Pac-Man voice as he does give up a home run along the way to Ryan O'Hearn. 6th home run season, but Dean Kramer was on it. Only 2 strikeouts, but 7 scoreless innings. Ynier Cano, Felix Bautista, both on to scoreless inning. And for the Royals, you did have a pair of outs out of the bullpen from Steven Cruz, along with Taylor Clark coming in for a scoreless inning. And you had a lot of scoreless innings pitched by the Oakland Athletics. 6-1, they take down the Miami Marlins, I should say the Sacramento Athletics, whatever they want to call them. But that said, you had the MLB debut of Gunnar Hoglund, and he was good in this one. 6 innings, allows 1 run. That 1 run, a solo home run as Dane Myers gets his 3rd home run of the season. But Hogan Harris was more like Hogan Hero. He gave up nothing in his 2 innings of work. Noah Murdoch in scoreless inning, and JJ Bleday, home run number 3 of the campaign off of Valentin Belozo, who pitched like a bozo. 5 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings. Ronnie Enriquez, a unearned run given up in 1 1/3 innings, and then Tyler Phillips, 3 scoreless innings. So you did a nice job holding down the 4th there, and doing a nice job of holding down the 4th was the New York Yankees. 3-0, they take it to the Tampa Bay Rays. As for the Rays, you had Ryan Pepiot lend a relatively solid start, 2 runs allowed in 4 1/3 innings. From there, you had Mason Montgomery get you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Eric Orzi, along with Manuel Rodriguez, Garrett Clevenger, all lend a scoreless inning. But for the Yankees, Max Fried just continues to be remarkable. 7 scoreless innings, allowed just 1 hit. Devin Williams, Luke Weaver, both lend a scoreless inning. So that gets the job done for the New York Yankees, and this gets the job done for the Boston Red Sox. 6-1, they take it to the Minnesota Twins. The Twins continue to be one of the most disappointing teams in all of baseball, by the way. 13-20 for them thus far this season, and for the old Twins, they just were unable to get anything going whatsoever in this game, as it was a pretty solid start from Brian Bayo. Gives up a solo run in 6 and 2/3 innings. He did allow that to Ryan Jeffers, his second home run on the campaign, and Joe Ryan was good in his own right. He allows a solo home run in his 6 innings of work. As going deep for Boston, it was Alex Bregman, 8th home run of the season, but things fell completely apart late for this bullpen as Jorge Alcala gives up 3 runs in an inning. Danny Calhoun pair of outside the bullpen scoreless, but Louis Varland, he gives up 2 runs in a third of an inning, and for the Boston Red Sox bullpen was able to put this thing on lockdown as he had Justin Wilson giving it out of the bullpen, Greg Weiser, Liam Hendricks. They both led a scoreless inning. For the Toronto Blue Jays, they do find a way to prosper and get the job done as they take down the Cleveland Guardians just by a count of 5-3. And for Cleveland, you had a pair of home runs in this one. Bo Naylor, 5th home run of the campaign, and also Carlos Santana, his 3rd home run season. That comes off of Chris Bassett, was taken hook, line, and sinker twice for those 2 home runs, 3 runs, the total allowed in 5 1/3 innings. But you did have Chad Green give you a scoreless inning. Brandon Little comes up big with 1 2/3 innings scoreless, and Jeff Hoffman a scoreless inning. And George Springer was able to take Logan Allen deep, 3rd home run of the season. Allen gives up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned in 5 2/3 innings. From there, Matthew Festa, newly acquired, he was able to give you 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and you did have 2 runs given up by Jacob Junis in 2/3 of an inning before Joey Cantillo was able to give you an out of the bullpen scoreless. So for the Toronto Blue Jays, they were able to get a nice win out there, and also being able to get a relatively rock-solid win was the Chicago White Sox. 7-3, they're able to take down the Houston Astros, as for the Astros, they go just 2 of 13 with men in scoring position, and Framber Valdez, not great in this one. 4 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings, including a home run, as Luis Robert, he gets home run number 5 of the campaign. The Cannon, Jonathan Cannon was solid, giving up just 2 runs over the course of his 6 innings. Steven Wilson, Cam Bouger, they both give you a scoreless inning. Jordan Leisure does give up a solo run to Yenny Diaz, 3rd home run on the campaign, and then you did have Taylor Scott, who's had a bit of a struggle this year for the Astros, give up 3 runs in 1 1/3 innings. Caleb Bort, a scoreless inning, and Bennett Sosa was able to give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless as well. Just getting started with regards to Rockies versus Giants. I have to have this up by midnight Pacific, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, so unfortunately not going to be able to hit that, but for the Cincinnati Reds, they were on to a nice win over the Washington Nationals. As for Washington and Cincinnati, this was a game that got started late due to a little bit of rain, and for Mitchell Parker, worst start of the season. 5 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings. Did have from there Lucas Sims, Cole Henry, Jackson Rutledge, all in his scoreless inning. Eduardo Salazar, he gave up a run in his inning of work, and one run for the Washington Nationals through the 9th inning was Josh Bell getting his 5th home run in the campaign off of Hunter Green to his rock solid 12 punch-outs, 1 run allowed over the course of 6 innings, and then from there, Scott Barlow, Tony Santillan, and Emilio Pagan. They're able to polish things off. How about the Seattle Mariners just absolutely lambasting the Texas Rangers as they went into the 9th inning, 13-0 the score. As for Seattle, you were able to get a trio of home runs. Cal Raleigh, big dumper, goes deep off of Jack Leiter twice, his 11th and 12th home runs of the campaign, and then Mr. Julio Rodriguez is able to go yard in this one. That was home run number 5 of the campaign for him. That was off of Jacob Latz. For Latz, he gave up 4 runs over the course of 5 outs, and Jack Leiter Jr., he gives up 6 runs over the course of 4 1/3 innings. You did have from there Caleb Bousley, pride of Hortonville, Wisconsin, lend a scoreless inning, and Tucker Barnard, 2 scoreless innings for there. And for the Texas Rangers, just their 10th over of the season. They have the highest under rate in all of baseball. Brian Wu says woohoo to giving up just 1 hit in 6 1/3 innings scoreless. Trent Thornton was able to polish up 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. You also had the Chicago Cubs just absolutely polishing off the Milwaukee Brewers. 10-0 going into the bottom of the 9th inning. Chris Flexen was able to polish off the rest of the game for the Cubs after Ben Brown, a really good 6 scoreless innings for them. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, this was just absolutely brutal for their main 2 guys, as Tyler Alexander served as the opener, and he opened up by giving up 2 runs and only providing 2 outs. And then Quinn Pricer, 7 runs allowed in 4 1/3 innings, including a pair of bombs. As going deep for the Chicago Cubs, you had Michael Busch be able to get his 6th home run of the campaign, and then Pete Crow Armstrong, he goes deep twice, 7th and 8th home runs of the season. He goes deep off of Yoel Payamps as well, as Payamps gives up that home run in his inning of work. Tobias Myers, Grant Anderson, Jake Bowers all led a scoreless inning. That was Bowers, I believe, 2nd relief appearance in 2 days, so that's a little bit less than savory to say the least. So a nice win for the Chicago Cubs, who have been a really good over team thus far this season, as they're currently leading the big leagues in terms of runs per game. And with regards to this Chicago Cubs team, with the over that we did see on Friday, 20 overs, 11 unders, and 2 pushes. Only the Miami Marlins have been better to the over thus far this season, but they play a little bit of an underwhelming game against the A's, as we saw on Friday. But you did see in terms of a game that really did underwhelm the LA Dodgers. They get the job done on the road against the Atlanta Braves, 2-1. The final is for the Dodgers. Yoshinobu Yamamoto continues to be amazing. 6 scoreless innings. Kirby Yates, he does allow his home run in his inning work going deep for the Atlanta Braves. Matt Olson, 5th home run of the campaign. And Grant Holmes wasn't bad in this one. 2 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings. He does give up a home run to Mookie Betts, home run number 5 of the campaign. Dylan Lee, Desmond Hernandez, Rafael Montero, they all lend a scoreless inning. And for the Dodgers, they also had Tanner Scott along with Evan Phillips, both be able to lend a scoreless inning as well. For the Slam Diego Padres, they were able to slam the Pittsburgh Pirates as they were able to get an over, and they do indeed get the job done. As for the Padres, they had Dylan Cease only last 4 innings in this game. He allows 2 runs. There was quite a bit of rain in this one, and Gavin Sheets goes deep. Home run number 4 of the campaign for him. For the Pirates, Mitch Keller, he had another rough start. 5 runs, 4 of which were earned, allowed in 5 innings, and he does give up a home run. That was to Mr. Sheets. And then you did have, for the Padres, a pair of guys give a pair of outs out of the bullpen and allow a run, Wandy Peralta and Alec Jacob. And for Jacob, he does allow a home run to Adam Frazier. That was home run number 2 of the campaign. You had Yuki Matsui, Jeremiah Estrada hold down the fort with scoreless innings for the San Diego Padres. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Caleb Ferguson gives up 3 runs in the third of an inning as Ryan Baruchi, 4 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. Chase Shogurt, a scoreless inning as well. So that was a rough one for a Pirates team that with that loss, they are now 12-21 thus far this season. So that has been a little bit less than savory. This is still a game that is lingering. As for the Angels versus the Tigers, that's a game that's going on as well. Currently 1-0 as I'm recording this, so we'll see if the Tigers can get to the bullpen much like they did on Thursday. But right now we are in the latter half of the Mets versus St. Louis Cardinals game. The Mets are up in the 8th inning, 8-3, so they should be able to polish this one off with Pete Alonso going deep off of Sonny Gray, 8th home run of the campaign. And then John King was the king of giving it up to Brandon Nimmo. Home run number 7 of the campaign for Sonny Gray. 6 runs, 4 of which were earned. Give it up in 4 1/3 innings, including home run. Chris Roycroft, he gives a pair of outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. John King, he allows a home run in his inning of work. And then Roderick Munoz, he gives up a run over the course of his 2 innings. And for Clay Holmes, he was able to lend a little bit more length than usual. Does give up 3 runs over the course of 6 innings. Jose Buto from there is able to lend a scoreless inning, and the bullpen should be able to take it from there. And looks like the Giants are going to try to restore order. Currently up 3-0 the second inning on the Colorado Rockies after the Rockies had won back-to-back games after they started out the year with a whopping 4 wins and 25 losses. But looks like that is going to be rectified right about here. And if you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in baseball right now, it has been quite a bit of an underwhelming season thus far. As for the under rate, this is with a few games pending for Friday. It is currently at 52.3%, 236 unders to 215 overs. And if you're looking at the money line favorites, they're at 60.6%, 286 and 186 on the money line, and over the last 7 days, hitting at 63.2%, 55 and 32. Meanwhile, the unders hitting at about 51%, 44 unders to 42 overs. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we're getting trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we talk with our good friend Andrew Caley of Covers right here on the Baseball Betting Show, myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Decent Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Decent Family Podcast. It is always great to be joined by this man, as we do have our good friend Andrew Caley aboard. He does such great work at Covers, covering this great game of baseball. I know that he has been locked in since day number 1 with regards to a little bit of everything. He has us covered on so many different fronts over at Covers with regards to football, with regards to golf. I know that he does a tremendous job in terms of the NBA with some of those player props as well, and then he's got his bat flipping pick of the day when it comes to the Toronto Blue Jays, but really does a great job of covering all 30 teams out there in Major League Baseball. You are able to follow him on Twitter/X at Covers_Caley, spelled Caley. And Andrew, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Oh, it's always great to be here talking Blue Jays baseball and regular baseball and all sorts of baseball, betting baseball, all the baseball we can talk. I'm always happy to do it here with you, Greg.
And I'm always happy to have you aboard, Andrew, because you do such a great job of looking at this great game. And I love that you're out there in the country of Canada because you get an up close and personal feel for what is happening with the Toronto Blue Jays. And just where do you feel like they're at right now? Because I think the best way to describe the Blue Jays season thus far has been meh. Like that, I think, is a perfect way to describe it. They're 14-16. They're in the middle of the AL East right now. They're by no means out of it. By no means have they lit the world on fire. And I want to get your thoughts here because I just feel like for the Toronto Blue Jays, you can't consider right now a massive failure, but to say it's been a success would also be very much overstating it.
Oh, Greg, like there was a stretch there where things were looking pretty good. They were playing pretty good baseball, and they lost a game. in extra innings to Seattle, and then they proceeded to lose, I believe it was 8 of 9 games, and they scored 2 runs or fewer in 6 of those games, I believe. It was getting pretty dark up here in Canada. Like, you say it kind of met, but there was a lot of glass half empty conversations going up here around the Toronto Blue Jays. The biggest reason being that there just aren't enough major league bats in this lineup. Getting Dalton Varsho is a big deal for them, but then you're saying, oh my goodness, getting Dalton Varsho back is a big deal, which is also a problem because sure, he's got some pop in his bat, but you're not expecting him to hit for average anytime soon. And obviously great to have his glove back in the lineup, but it's kind of a sad situation. I knew it was going to be like this. The second they said that Andres Jimenez was going to be their cleanup hitter on opening day, I was like, this isn't good. They didn't go out and get enough bats. There's not enough depth in the farm system to call up the guys that you thought they might call up. And on top of that, the rotation, while it has, I would say, overperformed at this point. Very thin. We're hoping that Max Scherzer's thumb hasn't officially fallen off, but like expecting him to come back and pitch anytime soon is kind of, I don't know, that's wishful thinking, I would say. Bassett has pitched out of his shoes, but you don't expect him to keep that up. Gausman's been fine. Barrios has kind of been regressed back to the Jose Barrios you know and love, which means giving up runs. And Bowden Francis has turned back into a pumpkin for them. He does not look like the guy who was arguably the most dominant pitcher in baseball for the final 2 months of the year. It's not good right now for the Blue Jays. And as I said, very dark, but they had that huge comeback win against the Boston Red Sox on Wednesday night, down 6-0. It was nice to see Santander and Kirk and Varsho. They all went deep. Other people besides Bo and Vladdy doing stuff is really important for this lineup right now. They can't just be relying on those two guys all season long. The potential's there. Like, if things fall right and then these guys start hitting, Santander obviously has been a cold hitter in April his entire career, so that was kind of expected. They need another bat. They need another major league hitter in that lineup, and they just don't have it at this point. There's too many holes, and like I think they need to get another starting pitcher as well. The bullpen has been surprisingly effective. Jeff Hoffman looks like a great pickup, especially when you consider what Jordan Romano is doing over in Philadelphia right now. There's potential. I'd say there's potential with this Jays team, particularly considering I think every team in the American League East has some flaw or another, some much worse than the others, the Orioles pitching staff right now, when I think about that. But I'm going to say, I don't want to call it glass half empty or half full. There's just water in the glass. We just don't know what it's going to be at this point.
We are in the desert and we have some sort of water. We don't know if we have an ounce. We don't know if we have a waterfall. So there is some sort of water, but we're probably going to need a little bit more. As joining me on the show, we do have Andrew Caley. He does such an amazing job over at Covers, and it is going to be very interesting to see what we get out of the Blue Jays over the next few days, because you just mentioned it. It has been a bit rough with regards to the offense, to say the least, and I've been very intrigued by the bullpen as well. This is going to be a weekend series that they're going to be playing against the Cleveland Guardians, by the way, and we're most likely going to be seeing Kevin Gausman on Saturday, and I think that he's such an interesting guy, and I do think that this is a little bit of a crossroads series as well, because the Cleveland Guardians have actually started out 18-13 going into this weekend series against the Blue Jays. But for the Cleveland Guardians, I do feel like they're another one of those teams that, much like the Blue Jays, sometimes they just need a little bit more offense. And for the Guardians, it feels like it's been a little bit shaky with them as well. But unlike the Blue Jays, they have been able to find a way to be able to win these one-run games, highlighted by the fact that against the Twins over in that series, they had 2 one-run wins.
If the Jays can get the starting pitching like they have to this point, they can be successful in this series. We'll probably be looking at some unders in this series as well. But Gausman, very successful against current Guardians hitters. Jose Ramirez only has a 198 expected batting average against him. All Guardians hitters right now have only gotten to him for a 338 expected slugging, and he has a strikeout rate of almost 26% of the guys in the lineup right now. The splitter's been dancing for Gausman again this year, which has been a big thing. We haven't seen a velocity dip in the fastball yet. He needs to keep that velocity up because he's basically a 2-pitch pitcher at this point in his career. If that velocity of that fastball is not overpowering, then people are just going to not swing at the splitter whatsoever, and they're just going to sit fastball, which is what kind of happened to him last year. And it seems that he has bounced back a bit from that. But I think he can be effective against the Guardians. I wouldn't mind taking a look at his strikeout prop, and I'll definitely be looking at the under as well.
And I do think that that's a solid look, and I do think that we should talk about this a little bit more as well, because I mentioned it with the Blue Jays. A reason why you can feel a little bit glass half full about them, in my opinion, is the fact that really nobody has run away with the AL East, and I don't know if anyone is going to run away with the AL East. It's just been a lot of meh from a lot of these teams. The Orioles have really fallen off the table this far. It's not been great for them. The Tampa Bay Rays, you know that they're going to be pesky, but at the same time, their offense is very hot and cold as well. For the New York Yankees, they've had a tough time with guys not named Luke Weaver in the bullpen. And for the Red Sox, I don't know about you, but it just feels like there's been a little bit of something unsettling with them as well. How do you take a look at the entirety of the division? Because I do feel like it's a division that the Yankees and the Red Sox should be able to run and hide with, but as of right now, they just have not been dominant through the first month plus of the season.
Yeah, the Yankees are obviously the front runners. I see them as the minus 130 favorites right now, and I get it. It makes sense. Like, they are slugging the heck out of the baseball right now, but it feels like they're going to have to do that at this point. Like, if they're not outscoring everybody by 3, 4, 5 runs a game, they're going to be losing. Yeah, Luke Weaver. The downfall of Devin Williams has been just incredible.
As a Brewers fan, I saw this coming.
Did you? Well, that's good.
Yeah, the way that he ended his tenure was not great, my friend.
Well, I was shocked with the way that Weaver had pitched leading up to the postseason and the postseason, that they didn't just leave him as the closer anyway. But yeah, that bullpen is shaky. The starting rotation has been downright bad without Garrett Cole, sort of thing. They need to get reliable innings, or that bullpen is going to get killed. But like I said, if they're not hitting bombs all the time, it looks like Aaron Judge is going to, because he is having a phenomenal season. But if he's not getting any support in that lineup, and I expect them to go through a lot of streaks this year. These guys all feel like very streaky guys for the most part. Bellinger, Goldschmidt, Chisholm, like, they'll go through cold streaks, they'll go through hot streaks, but they're vulnerable. They're a very flawed baseball team, I would say. Same with the Red Sox. They feel very streaky to me as well, and if Bregman and Devers aren't hitting well, then they could fall off as well. And another team, they're just relying on a lot of guys to improve their game, and it's a very unspectacular starting rotation, which is why if the Blue Jays could actually hit a little bit, and maybe Jose Barrios isn't terrible, like, you throw in that rotation against what else is stacked up in this division, and they should have a shot. And when you look at the odds right there, plus 950 with the Blue Jays is probably the best number on the board right now. The Orioles are just, for a team that had the World Series aspirations that they did, to see this starting pitching be as bad as it is quite honestly just baffling. And I don't know, until they have to go out and trade for 3 starting pitchers. Like, and honestly, the hitting hasn't been there, but like, you expect that hitting to come around at times because they're so talented. But when it's not there and you don't have any pitching, you're going to lose a lot of baseball games, which is what's happening to them right now.
Yeah, it certainly has been rough to say the least for them. And for the Baltimore Orioles, I'm right there with you. The fact that they didn't retain Corbin Burns is one thing, but if you don't retain Corbin Burns, that should free up a little bit of money for, I don't know, someone not named Kyle Gibson, someone not named Cade Povich, guys like this.
Anyone. Give them anyone.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's been rough to say the least for them, but what's not rough is getting Andrew Caley on the show. He does such great work over at Covers, joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, and that certainly has been one of the most stunning things that we've seen this season, the way that the Orioles have went straight down the toilet bowl. But I mean, here at the, I guess we call it 5-week point of the season. We're a little bit of a month through. Have there been a few other teams that have been a good surprise, whether that be to the positive or the negative, that have been really standing out to you?
I don't want to call the Padres a surprise, because like, they're very talented. Another team that has just pitched so well. So they've been fun to watch at this point. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see if the Cubs can keep up this phenomenal hitting that they're doing right now. I don't think anybody would have guessed that the Chicago Cubs would lead the league in runs scored at this point of the season, scoring, I think, almost 30 more runs than the Los Angeles Dodgers have at this point. That lineup is young. It's fun. If Justin Steele hadn't gotten hurt, I would have said this is their division to run away with. They're going to need to go out and get an arm at some point, I would say, as well. But they've been a lot of fun to watch so far. And I don't know, in the American League, like you said, it's been a lot of meh. The Central is kind of what we expected the Central to be. The Rangers have cooled off after a bit of a hot start. And you know what? The Houston Astros are just doing their thing. They're slowly climbing up the the standings there. And let's give a shout out to the not Oakland Athletics, because it's been really fun to watch them play baseball. I really actually like Soderstrom. I like Lawrence Butler. Like, they've got a good young lineup, and they've been fun to watch play, particularly considering their situation. So the Athletics, they deserve a little love here as well.
And how do you take a look at that AL West as well? Because for the Seattle Mariners, they had a rough first 2 weeks of the season, but they've been able to round in form after they've had a lot of, shall we say, not so great starts to the season. For the Rangers, they've been able to tread water, being above 500, but they have gotten no hitting whatsoever. And then the LA Angels, they do what the LA Angels do. They always give you hope for the first 2.5 weeks of the season, and they go straight down the toilet bowl. And we have seen that to a T thus far this season. So I'm very intrigued by this division, because I think that the Oakland A's have a chance to win 75, maybe 80 games this season.
Incredible stuff. They're a young team. Like, all the other teams in this division feel old. Everyone feels old, and the Athletics are young, and they're fun. They're getting behind each other. Like, they're obviously in this weird situation where they're playing in this minor league ballpark, and it's been really fun to watch them pick each other up and the way they've played baseball. The Rangers, I feel bad for Marcus Semien. Like, it feels like he has just completely cratered. When it started happening last year, I was like, oh, it feels like just a slump. But when it starts this season too, the way it has for him, like, oh my, I'm a little happy the Blue Jays didn't pay him all that money now. That's been kind of a little baffling at this point. I don't believe in the Mariners hitting at this point. They obviously, Cal Raleigh has been red hot, and they're another team. Like, they just beat the Blue Jays a couple weeks ago in that series because Rowdy Tellez hit 4 home runs in 2 games against his old team. Like, I don't expect them to be getting that from him throughout the season. Julio Rodriguez is one of the most interesting cases in baseball. Like, he should be one of the best players in baseball when you look at him and you see some of his numbers and you're like, why isn't he? I can't really explain it. He obviously has a big hole in his swing, but he hasn't really fixed it at this point. And there's just a lot of question marks. Obviously, the starting pitching with the Mariners is fantastic, and I would put my money on them at this point to win the division. I don't know what they are right now. I think, oh, look, they're plus 150. That'd probably be my play, just because I think they have the best starting rotation probably in not just the division, but probably the American League as well, from top to bottom there. So, yeah, if they go out and get another bat, they could be a dangerous team as well.
Yep, I think so as well, and I think that AL West is going to be interesting. Obviously, the AL East is going to be as well. The Central, we've got ourselves a lot of good, clean family fun out there, and we always have fun when you're aboard, Andrew. You do such a great job covering so many different things, whether that be baseball, whether that be golf, football, we name it, you do it. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you, and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Oh, it is Blue Jays baseball all day, every day at this point of the summer there, Greg. My bat flipping pick of the day, it'll be posted on over at Covers on social medias all day. You can follow me on Twitter /X at Covers_Caley. That's Caley. And yeah, we're diving into this baseball. Everything. NFL draft is over. We'll get into some college football previews in a few months here, but we're still just we're just head first into baseball right now, and it's a fun time to be a seam head.
Absolutely, it is May, and that means that Justin Timberlake is very happy, and so am I, because that means that we've got ourselves some great playoff action in the NBA and NHL. We've got ourselves some great baseball, and Andrew, he does a great job on so many different fronts. So big thanks to Andrew Caley for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Saturday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Andrew Caley. He does such great work over at Covers, covering a little bit of everything. And I know that he is hard at work taking a look at the baseball front day in and day out. His efforts are always appreciated, and always love to get him aboard. So big thanks to Andrew for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Saturday as we touch them all.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the Rowdy recap.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_D1. We're going to be going in the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, and any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So let's get things started with 9:51, 9:52 on the card. The New York Mets hit the road. They're facing off against the St. Louis Cardinals as Eric Fetty Wap gets a start for the Cards, and Tyler Tyler McGill is on the bump for the Mets. The Mets do find themselves as favorites between minus 137 to minus 145 and between plus 118 to plus 131. That number on St. Louis 8 is the total. Over is minus 120 to minus 130. Under is between even money and plus 110. And with this, if we can get to an 8.5, that would begin to be my buy point on the under. I set my total at 8.3. We're starting to see some 8.5s pop up with the under and the over both at minus 110. Personally, I'd rather have an 8.5 under rather than an 8 over, as the Mets have been a very good under team. They have a top 6 team with regards to bullpen ERA, and St. Louis Cardinals have been less than savory with their bullpen. They are a bottom 10 team in terms of bullpen ERA, really, other than Ryan Helsley, the rock star closer. It's been rough for a lot of these guys. Kyle Leahy's also been pretty solid in that bullpen as well, but when you've got the likes of Ryan Fernandez, Jojo Romero just not firing on all cylinders, that has made things rough for them. And for the New York Mets, the long guys have been very good for the team. Max Kronick, Jose Buto have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, which I like, but what I find to be very interesting about Eric Fetty is the way that he has been able to perform at home. Since the beginning of the 2024 season, he's been able to post up an ERA that's darn near 1.7 points lower when he is at home rather than when he is on the road. And for Fetty, not going to be some sort of a strikeout artist or anything like that, so he's a bit opposite of Tyler McGill in that way. Only 4.7 strikeouts per 9 innings this far this season, 468 ERA, 478 fielding independent, but has been able to round in for him, giving up 2 runs or fewer in now 3 out of his last 4 starts. So that's something that you do like to see, though. He did give up a 7 spot in his last start. And then on the flip side, you do have a guy in Tyler McGill who he sometimes does have the propensity to give up a few too many walks. This year, about 3.5 walks per 9 innings, while getting 11.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. This has been truly his best season with a +74 ERA. He has given up 3 earned runs or fewer in all of his starts this far this season. Has been a little bit more rough on the road rather than at home, but like what I'm seeing there, you did have Juan Soto a few days ago finally bust out for the New York Mets, being able to hit a pair of home runs against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So that's what you like to see, because his on-base percentage has always been there for this team. And for the Mets, they are starting to bust out a little bit more offensively. Francisco Lindor, right around about a 300 average. He's been supplying the team with 6 home runs. Pete Alonso, well north of 450 on base. He has been so dominant. But you have had a few guys like Francisco Alvarez, who just came off the injury list, Mark Vientos, Jesse Winker, that you could use just a little bit more from. Brandon Nimmo hitting for power, but not really for average. And then for the St. Louis Cardinals, the young guys are starting to step up for the team a little bit. Victor Scott has been solid in terms of being able to move line, not a ton of power, but has been there for this team. Alec Burleson is someone that I've always liked. Stuck on 0 home runs going into yesterday, but I think that's going to go northward. And Wilson Contreras has begun to be a little bit better at the plate after a rough start to the season, as Brendan Donovan has been the main guy to move line, hitting above a 330 going into yesterday. And Lars Zupar, 5 bombs, nearly a 4 on base. Do like what I'm seeing there. An interesting bit of a circumstance with the Cardinals entering yesterday 10-5 at home, and I do think that is something to be very much mindful of for Fetty. It's been a bit up and down, but I do think that he delivers a solid start, and McGill does have just a little bit of a rough time of it, typically on the road throughout his career. He's had some pretty demonstrative home and road splits, so I do think that they need to play into this a little bit. And additionally, for the New York Mets, I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression in terms of that overall starting pitching rotation as well. They have outperformed, in my opinion, the expectations, and do think that there might be a fall off there into the point of Tyler McGill. 353 home ERA, 532 ERA on the road. So circumstance where I set the Cardinals at a +124, so +125 or higher. Looking at the Cardinals on the money line and at an 8.5, I like the under. 953 and 954 on the betting board. The Colorado Rockies are on the road against the San Francisco Giants. As you've got Jordan Nix on the bump for the Giants, and it's Bradley Blaylock who gets the start for the Rockies. The total on this game is 8, over and under both at -110, +205 to +215. That number on Colorado, -235 to -250. That number on the Giants. Initial run line price I'm seeing on the Giants is -110. I'd be willing to go up to a -128, so I'm going to be looking to lay that run line. Now, for Jordan Nix, it's been a very much less than savory start to the season for him. He's got an ERA that is well north of a 6, but that said, there should be some positivity with him. He has not given up a whole bunch of homers this far this season. He has only allowed 2 home runs in 32 plus innings across his starts this far this season. Now, he has given up at least 5 runs in 3 of his last 4 starts, but he also gets to go up against Colorado Rockies team that entered into yesterday, averaging 2.2 runs per game and hitting below the Mendoza line of 200 when they are away from home. That is dead last in the big leagues on both fronts, and it's a Colorado Rockies team that, despite the fact that they entered into yesterday having won 2 straight games, man, a 6-25 record is very much less than savory, to say the least. Hunter Goodman has 4 home runs on the road thus far this season, so that's nice. He's got 4 of the team's 11 entered into yesterday, but I mean, man, when you take a look at some of these guys, you're just getting absolutely no production whatsoever out of them. Ryan McMahon overall is hitting a .152. That's not just on the road, that's overall, and these guys that have been seeing it bad time and time again where the team just have not come through. Michael DeGlia entering into yesterday, .58 on base, away from Ezekiel Tovar, went on the injury list, by the way, 133 on base on the road. You've had Sean Borchard give you nothing. Jacob Stallings, backup catcher, has given you nothing. Kyle Farmer, along with Hunter Goodman, are both hitting about a 265 on the road, so they've given you a bit of something, but you just need more out of this team. And for the San Francisco Giants, this has been a pretty high-powered offense, despite the fact that they do play in one of the more pitcher-friendly ballparks out there in all baseball. Jung-Ho Lee has been very big for this team after he missed much of last season, coming over from the KBO, nearly a 370 on base going into yesterday. You've had some solid power with Matt Chapman, Mike Yastrzemski, Eloy Ramos, all supplying 5 home runs for the team, with Chapman 350 on base going into yesterday, hitting just a 200 in terms of that batting average. That should go northward. Mike Yastrzemski might see a little bit of regression, but that 387 on base has been a nice sign for him. I know that Tyler Fitzgerald is dealing with injury, and LeBontway Jr. has been awful for the team, but what else is awful is the Colorado Rockies bullpen, as Victor Vodnik, one of their lone reliable pieces, is currently on the injured list. And I will say, Jake Bird along with Jimmy Urquhart, these 2 guys have been able to supply a sub-3.5 ERA, so you do like to see that, but when you do get into these guys like Anel Shavili and company, it's just very untrustworthy, and the Rockies year in and year out, typically a bottom 3 team with regards to bullpen ERA. Meanwhile, for the San Francisco Giants, their bullpen is back to firing all cylinders. You've got 2 really good long guys in Randy Rodriguez, Hayden Birdsong. They're supplying a sub-150 ERA. Spencer Bivens is able to give some length. He's been rock solid. And Camilo Duvall starting to look like the Camilo Duvall of old. Eric Miller has been able to give you a sub-1 ERA, so even though Jordan Hicks probably going to give up some runs here, I do think the positivity is coming his way. And for the Rockies and Bradley Blaylock, a career 6.69 ERA, his 10 career appearances. He has been making appearances as both a long guy and a starter this far this season. Probably not going to lend a lot of length. That means a lot of exposure for a bad Rockies bullpen, so maybe my total on 80.3. I like the over, and I do like the Giants on the run line. 955, 956 on the betting board. You've got yourself the San Diego Padres on the road against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Bailey Falter hopes to not live up to his name for the Buccos, and right now it is old to be determined who's going to be going for the San Diego Padres. This is a game that is presently off the board. At initial look, I was seeing Randy Vasquez getting the start for the San Diego Padres, but that is very much up in the air at this point, and if you do get Mr. Vasquez going up against Bailey Falter, it's not the Padres where I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 145 on that money line, plus 147 or higher, looking at the Buccos, and did somebody tell it at 8.7, so in after less, looking at the over, 9 or higher, the under. I won't go too far in on Randy Vasquez because he is very much TBD for this game, but I mean, he's pretty much a replacement level pitcher. If you don't get Randy Vasquez and you get someone else, this is not going to change my handicap too much because Vasquez, quite frankly, has not been that great this far this season. 4.28 ERA is not the world's worst, but he's giving up 6.3 walks per 9 innings and getting 3.3 strikeouts per 9. Now, to his credit, he's allowed 1 home run in 27 1/3 innings through 6 starts, but he's also not letting a lot of length. Here's a big kicker, though, for the San Diego Padres. Number 1 in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. They are registering, going into yesterday, a sub-180 bullpen ERA. Like all these guys have been amazing. Jason Adam, dating back to the beginning of the 2024 season, a sub-2 ERA. Robert Suarez, if you could get to him in the closer's role, he has been rock solid, but I mean, even some of these long guys, like a Yuki Matsui is supplying a sub-3 ERA. Alec Jacob is holding down the fort. Andre Montahone, he's been able to give you a 1.76 ERA. All these guys have been performing very well, and they've needed to, because for the Padres, this is a bunch that is quite a bit banged up. They are getting Luis Ariz back after he had that collision on Sunday Night Baseball, but still without Jake Cronenworth, still without Jackson Merrill. You've had Manny Machado, still do a solid job of being able to reach base, but 2 home runs for the season entering into yesterday. Do have to love what you've seen out of Fernando Tatis Jr., though. This guy's giving you north of 400 on base. He's hitting for all sorts of power. Gavin Sheets has done a great job of moving line this far this season. He's been able to supply a trio of bombs worth of 350 on base, and having Ariz back gets him on base. Xander Bogaerts, only 1 home run entering into yesterday, but again, another guy that has been able to get on base for the team. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, this has been a relatively rough offense. You do have Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who does a solid job of being able to reach base for this team. He's been able to hit north of a 260 this season, and Andrew McCutcheon about a 350 on base as well. Getting back Joey Bart, who's been just off and on injured the last few seasons, has been big as well, nearly 400 on base entering into yesterday. And O'Neal Cruz has been really that lone form of power. 8 home runs going into yesterday, north of 350 on base. Lone guy on the roster with 4+ home runs. Brian Reynolds, after a rough start to the season, seems to be picking it up, but you do have a lot of these guys towards the bottom of the lineup, like Alexander Canario has been relatively rough for the team. Jared Triolo, Jack Swiniski, guys like this are just giving you absolutely nothing whatsoever. And this has been a Pirates bullpen that has been off and on awful over the last few seasons. David Bednar seems to have straightened himself out a little bit, but they've been without Dennis Santana on the bereavement list. Colin Holderman has not been living up to his name. Ryan Brookie has actually been relatively solid this year. I do not think that that is going to be a mainstay for this team, and I do think that the Padres are very much going to have that big bullpen advantage. So minus 145 or less looking at the Padres, and plus 147 or higher looking at the Pirates, as you do have a guy as well in Bailey Falter, who has lived up to his name quite a bit over the past few seasons. A nice hearty 5.93 ERA, not capable of getting any strikeouts whatsoever. 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings this year, giving up 1.5 bombs per 9 as well. It's just one of those cases where right when you feel good about him, because for our good friend Bailey Falter, he has allowed 3 earned runs or fewer in 3 of his last 4 starts, but it's coming off of getting destroyed by the LA Dodgers. He has been a bit better at home rather than on the road throughout his career, but still allowed 7 runs in a start 2 starts ago at home against the New York Yankees. So it's the case where at an 8.5 or less, I'm in on the over. A 9 or higher, I'm going to be in on that total under as well. 957, 958 on the betting board. The Arizona Diamondbacks at the road, they're facing off against the Philadelphia Phillies. Aaron Nola looks to be super for the Phils, and Brandon Pfaadt is on the bump for Arizona. 9 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110, and for the Phillies, they're between minus 120 to minus 135 favorites, and between plus 109 to plus 115 is that number on Arizona. And for the Phillies, I'm willing to lay up to a minus 122 on that money line right now. I'm seeing some minus 120s pop up. I'd be willing to dive in there. Now, Aaron Nola has been a guy that I have not been looking to back too much. He has been awful to start the season, but typically he is a little bit of a slow starter. I do think that now that the calendar is turned to May, he's going to be able to turn into a little bit of better form of himself. We saw a nice start a few nights ago against the Chicago Cubs, allows 1 run over the course of 7 innings, and his swing and miss stuff is still solid. He's getting 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and that 5.40 ERA is rough. The 4.29 fielding independent, I'm not saying it's amazing, but that does point towards a little bit of positive regression for him. And Brandon Pfaadt is a guy that I really do like for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Actually faced off against the same Phillies team during the postseason 2 seasons ago, and for Pfaadt, 2.78 ERA, more on a 3.93 fielding independent, though, as he doesn't get as many swings and misses as Aaron Nola does, and he has given up 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. He's allowed 5 bombs over the course of his 6 starts thus far this season, has been able to do a good job of containing them to solo shots, as he has given up a combined 4 runs over the course of his last 4 games. But I do have a belief that the Philadelphia Phillies are going to start to bust through. They're going to start to hit some home runs. Entered into yesterday, hitting about 0.85 home runs per game this season. Kyle Schwarber has been rock solid, being able to give you 7+ home runs, give you about a 400 on base. But I mean, pretty much all these guys are doing a good job of moving the line, getting on base. Hitters 1 through 6 entered into yesterday all give you at least a 335 on base. Max Kepler has been able to round into form. You've got Bryce Harper as an essay at the deep ball overly much with 5 home runs, doing a better job of finding a way on. Trey Turner, he's been able to do a nice job with his average. Again, need a little bit more power for the Arizona Diamondbacks dating back to the beginning of the 2024 season. Number 1 in the big leagues with regards to runs per game. Getting back Ketel Marte is big, as he had a nice start to the season, then he went on the injured list. And Eugenio Suarez is giving you nothing in terms of average, but when you've got 10 home runs for the season, that's rock solid. Randall Grichuk off to a little bit of a rough start to the season, but he's going to be able to be a nice professional hitter for the team moving forward. Alec Thomas, Josh Naylor, hitting above a 285 is rock solid. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, Matt Strahm, Jose Alvarado have been rock solid in this bullpen. Ryan Kerkering has been really pooping the bed thus far this season, though. Joe Ross is actually giving you some good innings, and Jordan Romano is giving you the exact opposite of that. So I do feel like it's very, very fair to have your trepidations with regards to this bullpen. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, with A.J. Puck now being on the injury list, that hurts them as well. Now, I've actually really liked what I've seen out of the likes of Ryan Thompson and Shelby Miller. Miller entered into yesterday, having not allowed a run all season long. Jalen Beeks should see some regression to his 2.16 ERA, but he's been a pretty solid long guy as well. But now Justin Martinez is going on the injury list. A lot of your more trustworthy pieces for the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen, they are right now dealing with injury. I think that that's going to be a little bit rough, but I do think that both Nola along with Brandon Pfaadt will lend a relatively good start in this one, so I am in on the under. I set my total at 8.7, and I do think that Nola is going to start to round into form at a minus 120 like I'm seeing. I'm in on the Phillies on the money line. Now 59, 960 on the betting board. You've got the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we are on to Cincinnati. They're going to be playing us to the Washington Nationals. Trevor Williams is on the bump for the Nats. Nick Lodolo is on the bump for Cincinnati, and for the Redlegs, you're going to be finding them anywhere between minus 174 to a minus 190, and between plus 150 to plus 160 is that number on Washington. Total on this game, you're finding it at a 9 with that under at a minus 120, and the over is even, and I'm going to be in on this total under as I did set my total at a 8.8, and at a plus 145 or higher, I'm going to be willing to nibble on the Washington Nationals money line. I recognize that Trevor Williams is probably not going to duplicate what he did last season. For Trevor Williams, somehow, some way, he was pitching to a bunch of contact and is able to induce pretty much all the soft contact in the world. As last season, he was posting up a sub 225 ERA, and that has warped into a 570 ERA thus far this season, but there should be some positivity for him here. A 396 fielding dependent. He's getting about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, so it's not like he's striking out nobody whatsoever. About 1.2 home runs per 9 innings allowed, and it's been all or nothing. Over his last 4 starts, he has given up 6 runs, and then a pair of starts where he allowed 1 run apiece, and then he gives up a 5 spot. So it has been up, down, all around for him, and Nick Lodolo has not necessarily been some sort of a strikeout artist as far as the season for the Cincinnati Reds, as he has been able to do a nice job of being able to keep the ball in the yard, as he has given up just 4 home runs across 36 innings in his 6 starts, but he's down to about 6.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Just great. 1.3 walks per 9 innings is pretty good, so 225 ERA, but at 376 fielding dependent, that is a little bit concerning, and for the Cincinnati Reds, as strange as it is to say, because they've got one of the better hitters ballparks in all of baseball, they've really done a lot of their damage with regards to their offense when they have been away from home rather than at home. 5.9 runs per game away from home, 4.3 runs per game at home. That's mainly because they had that 24 spot that they put up against the Baltimore Orioles about a week and a half ago. But for the Cincinnati Reds, you've been able to get some good production out of so many of these guys that have just come up recently. Eovaldi Marte has been a godsend for the team, hitting above a 300. Gavin Lux has found a way to be able to move line as well. And then Jose Trevino, Santiago Espinal, these guys have all been able to at least a 300 for the team. For the Reds, it's not as if they've had a whole bunch of power bats as well. Ellie De La Cruz has been solid, being able to fly the team with 5 home runs, and Austin DeSay's kid has been great as well. 5 home runs out of him, but there's really nobody that's on pace for north of like 25 or so home runs for the team. They're just doing a good job moving the line. Obviously, the stolen bases of Ellie De La Cruz along TJ Friedel have been able to help out this team, and for the Reds, they've got a solid, not great, not terrible bullpen in my opinion. I just still have trust issues with Emilio Pagan and his propensity to give up the home run ball, but you've got the likes of Tony Santillan, Taylor Rogers, Graham Ashcraft, all guys I think that at the end of the season they're going to finish with a sub 3.5 ERA, and Ashcraft delivered some good length for the team a little bit earlier in the week, and then for the Nationals, that's really the rough part of the team. North of a 7 ERA entering into the day on Friday in their bullpen, and right now you've got 2 guys in this bullpen that are supplying you with a sub 5.5 ERA. Kyle Finnegan has been relatively solid in the closer's role. Jackson Rutledge has been respectable, and everyone else is just absolutely terrible. Cole Henry, Ori Lopez, Lucas Sims, Jose Ferrer, like you want no part of any of these guys. And then for the Washington Nationals, you've had James Wood be able to provide some good wood. 9 home runs, a 360 on base. He has been rock solid. Getting back CJ Abrams and the fact that he's been able to give you some power, not necessarily giving you the world's greatest on base, but he's been relatively solid for the team. That's been able to help out as well. You do need to get a little bit more out of Josh Bell, who's giving you a 229 on base. Stone Cruz is starting to round into form, but still 240 on base. Jose Tena is hit or miss as well, but Keeper Ruiz is hitting at 300 for this bunch as well. Nationals swinging and missing much more than they did a season ago, but I do think that this number has gotten a little bit out of whack. Despite the fact that the Nationals have that rough bullpen, I do believe that Williams is going to be able to hold down the fort here. I did set my total at 8.8. Like the under with the Nationals, I'm going to be able to take a plus 145 or higher on that money line. 961, 962 on the betting board. It is the Chicago Cubs on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers, as Jose Quintana is on the bump for the Crew, and James Satayan goes for the Cubs. The total on this game is 8.5. Under is between minus 110 to a minus 120. The over is between even and minus 110. And for the Brewers, you're going to be finding them between minus 108 to a minus 115. And between minus 102 to a minus 105 is that number on the Cubs. And I'm going to be willing to take the Brewers on the money line. I did set them at a minus 132. Now, I do not think that the start to the season for Jose Quintana with a 1.12 ERA and a 4-0 record in his 4 starts is necessarily going to be long-lasting. But that said, I really like what I've seen out of him thus far this season. He is only getting about 5.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's been pretty solid in terms of not allowing a ton of walks or anything like that. So that has been a big reason why he's been able to have this success that he's been able to. And you do take a look at the flip side for James Zion. He's not necessarily some sort of strikeout artist himself. He has been able to get about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings this far this season, but posting up an ERA closer to about a 4, as he has been giving up closer to about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. And I do like the way that this Brewers team has been able to have a good plate approach all season long. You've had Rhys Hoskins supply nearly a 400 base. Would like to see a little bit more power out of him, but overall he's been able to do a nice job of being able to supply for the team. Additionally, you've got a pair of guys that have been able to at least 300 for the team, and Bryce Terang alongside Frelick. These guys are very good at moving line, and in the case of Terang, one of the best base stealers that you're going to find in all of baseball. Now, you do have a few untrustworthy guys of likes of Vinny Capra, Jory Ortiz in the infield, Isaac Collins. He could use a little bit more there, but all in all, I like what I'm seeing there. And for the Cubs, they do enter into the day on Friday, number 1 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. I do think that there's going to be a little regression to the fact that Carson Kelly entered into yesterday with 7 home runs at a 360 average across 50 at-bats. I don't think that's so outlandish to say. Kyle Tucker is here to stay. 400 on base, 8 home runs. He has been rock solid. Seiya Suzuki has been able to do a nice job of putting bat to ball. I do think that the 9 home runs drops off a little bit, but still, he's been solid. And then Pete Armstrong, Miguel Amaya, these guys at the bottom of the fold have been really helping out as well for the Cubs, though this has been a rough bullpen. And really, both of these teams, 23rd or worse in terms of bullpen ERA, but I do think that the Brewers have a better ability to be able to bounce back from it. As for the Brewers, you saw these guys like Yoel Payamps, Elvis Figueroa, Jared Koenig, Trevor McHale. They were all in that bullpen a season ago. And then for the Cubs, Porter Hodge was really good for them last season, and he has completely fallen off the map. You've been dealing with a lot of injuries, the likes of a Nate Pearson, Eli Morgan, who they picked up in the offseason. He's been on the injured list as well. They did pick up a guy in Ryan Presley who's been relatively okay for them, but even going back to his Houston Astros days, have a little bit of trepidation with him. So I do think that this is a very interesting ordeal. I do think that Quintana is going to start to give up some runs. So seeing the 8.5, I'm in on the overside. I told it at 8.6. And with the Brewers, I did make them a money line favorite of minus 132. So I'm going to be willing to lay that number. 963, 964 on the betting board. The LA Dodgers hit the road to face off against the Atlanta Braves as Spencer Schwellenbach is on the bump for the Bravos and Roki Sasaki is on the bump for the Dodgers. The Dodgers are between minus 107 to minus 115 favorites. Even money to minus 105 is that number on Atlanta. 8.5 is the total. Over is between minus 115 to minus 120, and the under is between even and minus 105. And for the Atlanta Braves, I did set them as a very slim favorite here of minus 113, so we'll go up to a minus 112 on that money line. For Roki Sasaki, had a rough start to his MLB career. He was given up the 9 walks in 4 2/3 innings in his first 2 starts, but has really been able to round into form. He's given up 3 runs or fewer in all 6 of his starts. His walks per 9 rate is still a 6 per 9 innings, but he's given up 2 walks or fewer 3 out of his last 4 starts. The swing and miss stuff is not necessarily overly dominant quite yet, but it's getting a little bit better. And for Spencer Schwellenbach, he has been tremendous this season. Recognizing he's given up at least 3 runs at each of his last 3 starts, and that's total runs because there was a few that were unearned, but that said, 287 ERA, 325 fielding dependent. I do like what I'm seeing out of him. This has been a pair of bullpens that have had their ups and they've had their downs thus far this season as well. For the Atlanta Braves, they do lose AJ Minter in the offseason, and Desbel Hernandez has been rock solid. Aniel De Los Santos, you just never know what you're going to get out of him. Rocio Iglesias is a guy that I like, but overall, it is an Atlanta Braves bullpen that does have a few issues. They entered into the day on Friday, about 17th of the league in terms of bullpen ERA, and then for the LA Dodgers, they've been down quite a few guys. Brusardo Graterol, Blake Trine being on the injured list, and Kirby Yates has been rock solid along Tanner Scott, Ben Casparis. The long guys like that have been solid, but still only about a 371 bullpen ERA. But I do think that both of these starters are going to be able to lend a relatively solid start, which is why I set my total at 8.2. I do like the under for the Atlanta Braves. It feels like this has been an offense that's left just a little bit of something to be desired thus far this season, as you've had Shohei Ohtani, who's still putting up really good numbers. He's been able to give you a 387 on base. He's been able to supply the team with 7 home runs, but Mookie Betts entered into yesterday about a 341 on base and not necessarily hitting as many homers as you'd like to see, which that's just a very high standard for him to be able to meet in general. But Max Muncy just a 1 home run, hitting below a 200 entering into yesterday. Michael Conforto has been a little bit up and down as well, and then you've got Teoscar Hernandez, who's been able to give you 8+ home runs, hitting above a 300. Meanwhile, for the Atlanta Braves, Austin Riley has been able to round into form after a little bit of a tough start to the season. 6 home runs, hitting about a 275 for this unit, and getting back Alex Verdugo is big as well because he's been able to move the line. I just don't know if Eli White, Nick Allen, these guys at the bottom of the fold who entered into yesterday hitting for north of 340 on base are going to continue to do what they're doing. Michael Harris is giving you just a 250 on base, and for the Atlanta Braves, it's been a case where the just fall off in production for Matt Olson has been big in terms of deep ball, but Marcell Ozuna continues to find a way to be able to get on base. I do think that both of these starters are going to be solid, and I just have a little bit more belief in the Dodgers depth and the Dodgers bullpen, so made my total at 8.2. I like the under, and with the Dodgers, I'm willing to lay up to -112 on that money line. 965, 966 on the betting board. It's the Tampa Bay Rays on the road against the New York Yankees as Clark Schmidt goes for the Yankees, as Zach Little hopes to come up big for the Rays. 9.5 is the total, over and under anywhere between -105 to a -115, and between -168 to a -180 is that number on the Yankees. Between +150 to +155 is that number on the Rays. If you're looking at the run line price, you're going to be getting right around about a +110 with the New York Yankees. If we could get up to a +112, I'd be willing to dive in on that Yankees run line. I did set their money line price at a -171, but I'm going to be in on the under, because with the Tampa Bay Rays, even though Zach Little has been not necessarily dominant, to say the least, as far this season, he's posting up a 5.03 ERA. He is giving up north of 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. His walks per 9 rate since joining the Rays has been right around about 2.1 walks per 9 innings. He has allowed 3 runs or fewer in each of his last 3 starts, and he is backed up by an incredible bullpen. For the Tampa Bay Rays, they entered into the series number 5 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA at a 2.90. You've got everyone firing on cylinders for the team. Pete Fairbanks, along with Hunter Biggie. You've got Edwin Uceta as a little bit of a long guy for the team, and there's just been a lot of work done by Mason Engler when he's had to come in as a long guy. Eric Orze has been another guy that's come in with a sub-1 ERA, and for the Tampa Bay Rays, the lineup has been a little bit better than I expected this year. Junior Caminero, 6 home runs entering into this series, has been rock solid. Yandy Diaz, after a rough start to the season, he's starting around into form. Not necessarily a ton of power, as nobody other than Caminero with the 4 home runs as far this season, but Jonathan Aranda, 4 on base with 4 bombs. You've had Cameron Misner give you a trio of homers, give you 360 on base. Hurt by Jake Magnum now being on the injured list, but Chandler Simpson, he's been able to step up as well. And obviously for the New York Yankees, they lead the American League in terms of runs per game at home, but ever since that Titanic series that they had against the Milwaukee Brewers to start the year, it's been a little bit of a fall off. Aaron Judge obviously has been amazing, north of 500 base with 10 home runs entering into yesterday. Ben Rice, 8 bombs, 375 on base. Jed Chisholm hitting for no average whatsoever, but he's been able to supply the boom. And even with Cody Bellinger having his issues, Anthony Volpe has been a little bit up and down. Paul Goldschmidt providing that 4 on base has been solid, and you've also been able to get just a lot of the likes of Oswaldo Cabrera, Trent Grisham and company. And for the Yankees, they're going to need to fire on all cylinders with their lineup, with the way that the bullpen has been performing thus far this season, because Luke Weaver has been amazing, but for Devin Williams, it's been rough. I will say some of the likes of a Tim Hill has been relatively solid for this team. I do think that there's a little bit of potential with a guy like an Ian Hamilton. I like his overall stuff. Has never quite put it together at the big league level, but feels like he's had some good appearances. And even with the fall off of Devin Williams and company, this is still a team that is just right behind the Tampa Bay Rays in terms of bullpen ERA at a 3.02. That's number 6 in all of baseball. And for Clark Schmidt, the 5.52 ERA thus far this season has been a little bit less than savory, but he's been able to be pretty solid when he's pitched in Yankee Stadium in his 2 starts this season, 10 2/3 innings, allowing 4 total runs. For Schmidt, he's a very league average starter for his career, right around about a 4 ERA, but he gets between about 8.5 to 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, gives up a little bit over 3 walks per 9 innings as well. And I do think that he'll do a solid job here against the Tampa Bay Rays. Right now, I'm thinking we should be able to get like a +112, +115 on that Yankees run line, and we'll be looking there to go along with this total under, as I did set my total at an 8.6. 967, 968 on the betting board. The Houston Astros are on the road. They're facing off against the Chicago White Sox. Davis Martin is on the bump for the White Sox, and Hunter Brown is on the bump for Houston, and Houston does find themselves as between a -230 to a -250 favorite, and between +$2 to +210 is that number on the White Sox. 8 is the total. The over is -115. The under is -105, and for the Astros, I did set their run line price at a -138. Right now, we're seeing that open up right in the neighborhood, about a -135 to a -140. I would probably be willing to go up to about a -140 with regards to this run line, just because I don't have a lot of faith in the Chicago White Sox, who they are currently averaging at home about 3.7 runs per contest. That is 27th in all baseball, and Hunter Brown has just been dominant. How about this guy give you, in his last 4 starts, a combined 25 innings with 1 run allowed. And throughout his career, he's actually had a lower ERA when he's been on the road rather than at home. I'm not sure how, and I'm not sure why, but his walks per 9 rate falls by darn near a full walk per 9 innings when he is away from home rather than when he has been at home. This guy has been very rock solid with being able to get about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings as well. And Davis Martin has been solid himself. Now, he is only getting about 5.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, so there will probably be a fall off from his 3.24 ERA. Feeling it is more around a 4.62, but he has allowed 0 or 1 runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts, and he faces off against the Houston Astros team that they themselves have had a little bit of rough go of that offense. 3.25 runs runs per game away from home entering into the series. That was 23rd in all baseball. And for Houston, Yordan Alvarez just has not gone online going into yesterday, barely hitting above a 200 with only 3 home runs. You just expect a little bit more there. You've had Jeremy Pena be rock solid with about a 350 on base. Jose Altuve, along with Pena, both been able to give you about 3 to 4 home runs apiece. And Isaac Paredes, about a 366 on base, 4 home runs thus far. He's been a nice addition, but these guys at the bottom of the full, Brendan Rodgers, along with Yunior Diaz, whenever he gets to start, Mauricio Dubon, Cam Smith, these guys hitting at 225 or lower, not necessarily give you a lot of power. Christian Walker has not been great. That's been a bit of an issue. And for the Chicago White Sox, Lennon Sosa has actually been able to provide a good bat for the team thus far, hitting a 270 or so entering into yesterday. They were rolling the dice on Bobby Dalbec, who they acquired from the Boston Red Sox, and their backup catcher in Mr. Edgar Quiero has actually been able to move the line for the team, but you don't have a lot of power outside of Andrew Benintendi, who's been able to give you either 4 or 5 home runs as far as the season. Nobody else went north of 3 bombs. Luis Robert, Andrew Vaughn, Michael A. Taylor, lying below a 200. In the case of Robert, he just has had a complete fall off. That's been an issue for the team. And for the Chicago White Sox, you do have a bullpen that has a guy in Cam Boucher who's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, and Mike Vasile has actually been really good for the team, but when you're trusting in guys like Brandon Iser, Frazier Allard and company, it's not a place where you want to be. And for the Houston Astros, this has been a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. The Bryans, Brian King, Brian Abreu, both supplying a sub-3 ERA. Josh Hader sort of looked like that great Josh Hader of old, and Caleb Ort, he's just coming off the injured list. He should be able to give this team quite a bit more moving forward, and Steven Okert has been able to give you some good innings as well, so I really do like the way that they're rolling. Do think that this should be a low-scoring game with the White Sox just not able to get anything going off of Brown and this bullpen, so somebody told 7.3, like the under, and with the Astros, we'll go up to minus 140 on that run line. 969, 970 on the betting board. It is the Cleveland Guardians. They hit the road. They're facing off against the Toronto Blue Jays as Kevin Gausman goes for the Jays. Gavin Williams goes for Cleveland. 8 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110, and for the Blue Jays, between minus 134 to minus 142 is that money line price, plus 118 to plus 124, that number on Cleveland. And Cleveland I did set as a plus 137 underdog, so we'd be willing to go up to a minus 136 on this money line of Toronto. And for Kevin Gausman, it's been a relatively nice start to the season for him. He did have a rough time being able to get swings and misses in his first 2 starts of the season, but whatever zip/command was necessarily lacking towards the beginning part of the season, it's come back from 6+ strikeouts in now 4 of his last 5 starts. Recognize that in his last 2 starts, a combined 10 runs allowed over the course of 8 2/3 innings, but both of those starts were on the road. At home, he's been able to be a much better pitcher, a 4.50 ERA, but he has a 3.91 fielding dependency. He only gives up about 1 home run per 9 innings, and I do think that it is interesting to just see the big giant divide that you've seen for Kevin Gausman thus far this season, because at home, he has been providing that 3 ERA compared to a 5.32 ERA on the road, despite the fact that he's allowed 3 home runs in 12 innings at home and just 1 bomb on the road in 22 innings. Meanwhile, for Gavin Williams, you knew that he wasn't as bad as the ERA was indicating last season. For Gavin Williams, was one of the more unlucky pitchers in all baseball in 2024, posted up a 4.86 ERA despite a 3.67 fielding dependent. This year, been a bit rough for him, 5.14 ERA. He is still getting about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, but unlike last year where he gave up 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, that's up to 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, and he has allowed at least 4 runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts and at least 1 home run in 4 out of his last 5 starts, but he's still backed up by one of the better bullpens in the big leagues. If you date it back to the beginning of the 2024 season, the Guardians still number 1 in terms of bullpen ERA. Thus far this season, if you're looking at the entirety of it, it's been more like league average with a 3.80 ERA. So of the likes of a Tim Aaron, Hunter Gaddis, Cade Smith, who have been able to come in there, give you a sub-3 ERA, but it's been rough with Paul Sewald, and Emmanuel Clase just has been lost in the sauce thus far this season. And for the Cleveland Guardians, it is a very much top-heavy lineup. I like the way that Stephen Kwan is giving you north of a 350 on base, and he's been able to supply 4+ home runs this season. Jose Ramirez actually got lifted from the game yesterday, and it's been a little bit of a rough go of it for him. So giving you about a 275 average, but the power numbers have been a little bit down. Kyle Manzardo has been giving you 7 home runs with 322 on base, but not necessarily hitting for a ton of average. Carlos Santana certainly is out, but he was able to go deep yesterday. That's something that you'd like to see. But likes of John Kenzie Noel and Brian Rocchio, Bo Naylor, when you've got him in the catcher spot, Austin Hedges, these guys are giving you nothing whatsoever. And for the Blue Jays, bottom 3 team in the big leagues with regards to home runs on a per at-bat and a per game basis. Vlad Guerrero Jr. seems to be starting to finally bust out a little bit more, and his on-base percentage has still been right around about 370, but you'd expect a little bit more than 4 home runs for him at this point this season. You've had Bo Bichette hit at nearly a 285, but he's not necessarily giving you a ton of on base. He has not been able to go deep at all this season. George Springer, 400 base, but again, not necessarily giving you a ton with regards to the power department. Then Andres Jimenez has been hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. They've been giving guys like Addison Barger, Will Wagner and company some at-bats. They just haven't been able to give you too much whatsoever. Though I will say Miles Straw doing a good job of being able to get on base for the Toronto Blue Jays. This bullpen has been pretty solid in terms of your main 3. Chad Green, Jeff Hoffman, Yimi Garcia, especially Hoffman and Garcia. Both of these guys supplying a sub-150 ERA. But when you do get down a little bit further into the bullpen, even a guy like a Mason Fuhardy has been relatively solid. But you do have a few, shall we say, question marks there. And on the flip side, for the Cleveland Guardians, it has been a case where this team has been just up and down all season long, to say the least, as well. So it's an interesting circumstance. I do think that Gausman and Gavin Williams are going to be up around into form after a few rough starts. So I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the under. I did some, I told 7.8. And with the Blue Jays, made them a minus 137 favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay that money line, 971, 972 on the betting board. It is the Boston Red Sox, and they're going to be playing us to the Minnesota Twins as Bailey Ober goes for the Twins, and Hunter Dobbins is on the bump for Boston. And Boston does find themselves as between a minus 109 to a minus 118 favorite, and between plus 103 to minus 105 is that number on Minnesota. 9.5 is the total, over and under both at minus 110. And with the Red Sox, I did set them at a minus 112. I'm going to be willing trusting them on the money line for Bailey Ober. He had that just disastrous start to begin the season, and ever since then, he's been pretty rock solid as he has now given up 1 run or less in 4 of his last 5 starts, with the lone exception being the 3 runs allowed to the New York Mets, but still rocking a 4.25 ERA. His swing and miss stuff has been way down this season as well. He's only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. Has always been rock solid with the walks, only giving up 1.9 walks per 9 innings, but he has been giving up nearly a home run and a half per 9 innings, and I just don't think that Fenway is really a ballpark that really suits what he's able to do very well. And Hunter Dobbins, he's made just 2 starts for the Boston Red Sox, but he's been pretty stinking good in those 2 starts. A combined 11 innings, giving up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned. And if you take a look at what he's able to do at the minor league level, I do think that this is someone that has quite a bit of upside. One of their top prospects from a season ago. Last year, he posted up a 3.29 ERA. Wasn't blowing guys away with regards to his swing and miss stuff, but really, really good at just cutting down on hard contact. And that's something that you very much need to do out there in Boston. I think that this ballpark actually plays very well to what he's looking to do, and he faces off against the Minnesota Twins lineup that just has been all over the place. Matt Wallner, along with Royce Lewis being on the injured list, has been hurting the team. Byron Buxton is starting to give you a little bit of power, 6 home runs, and he's hitting at 250, but he's not drawing any walks whatsoever. Carlos Correa isn't as pathetic as he was towards the beginning part of the season, but he, Edouard Julien, along with a guy in Mickey Gasper, I mean, all these guys hitting at 225 or lower, not giving you a lot of power. That's been an issue. You've got Brooks Lee back. He's starting to give you a bit of production, so I do like to see that, but all in all, this has been a Twins lineup that has left a lot of something to be desired. And for the Boston Red Sox, after a rough start to the season, Jarren Duran being able to supply a 330 on base, that has been big for the team. Rafael Devers, he had that rough start to the season as well, but I mean, he's starting to be able to bounce out of it just a little bit. Has been a rough go of it for some of the guys at the bottom of the lineup, like Sedane, Rafaela, David Hamilton. These guys have given you nothing whatsoever. Tristan Casas still giving you less than a 280 on base, and he got lifted from the game yesterday as well. You've got Alex Bregman and Trevor Story, though, who've done a nice job of providing. Story's average is starting to fall off a little bit, but he's been able to supply 5 home runs. And Alex Bregman, traditionally a very slow starter, darn near 4 on base, 7 home runs thus far this season, so you'd like to see that. Both of these bullpens do have a few question marks. I would say that there's a few more question marks in terms of this Red Sox bullpen, just because with Aroldis Chapman as your closer, even though he's been solid thus far this season, I just have my trust issues with him. And Brendan Bernardino is currently on the bereavement list. Liam Hendricks, great story. I don't know what he's going to be able to give you this season at his advanced age. Justin Wilson, not a guy that I trust him, but I love Garrett Woodlock as a little bit of a long guy. And then for the Minnesota Twins, it has been a case where this bullpen has been neither here nor there. You've had Louis Varland have his issues to start off the season, Cole Sands as well, and Griffin Jacks. He's been getting all jacks up, but Danny Klum was an amazing addition for them. Yohan Duran, I think, has some of the most nasty stuff that you're going to find in all baseball. And for Bailey Ober, he's been a little bit all or nothing for him thus far this season. Do think that you get some scoring up on the board, but I did set my total at 9.2. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the under. I do trust in Dobbins in this spot. I've really liked what I've seen out of him thus far. Set the Red Sox at a minus 112, so willing to lay that money line of the Red Sox and going to be in on this total under as well. 973, 974 on the betting board. The Seattle Mariners are on the road against the Walker Texas Rangers. Patrick Corbin is on the bump for the Rangers, and Luis Castillo goes for Seattle. 8.5 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110, and with Seattle between minus 128 and minus 135 is your number on them, plus 114 to plus 119 is that number on Texas. And I did set my total to where I'm going to be taking a shot on the under at an 8.2. Patrick Corbin has actually looked a little bit better this year than he has in past years. It just feels like Texas, by the way, is playing very pitcher friendly. Feels like every single man that gets on base gets stranded on base, but For Corbin, through his first 4 starts, 3.79 ERA, 4.48 fielding independent. Strikeout numbers aren't great, only about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's allowing fewer than 3 walks per 9 innings. He had that rough first start against the Chicago Cubs, and ever since then, if I'm not mistaken, he's given up 3 earned runs or fewer in every one of these starts. So that's been big for him, and for the Mariners, they actually have 2 Luis Castillos. This is the correct Luis Castillo who's going to be getting the start here, and he's been up and down. We've seen a little bit of a velocity dip for him over the last, we're going to call it 12 or so months, and that's the reason why he's down to a pretty much a career low, 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, 4 walks per 9. A little bit alarming as well, but he's been able to do a solid job of being able to keep the ball in the yard, and he's rounded back into the form after that rough start that we saw against the Cincinnati Reds. In his last 2 starts, he's given up a combined 3 runs, albeit he did give up 10 hits against the Toronto Blue Jays, but this has been a man that has been able to just find it a little bit more here in general, and he's backed up by a bullpen that I think is solid. Not necessarily amazing, but you do have one of the more dominant closers out there in the big leagues, and Andres Munoz. Additionally, you've got most likely Matt Brash coming back to this lineup sooner rather than later, so that's going to be able to help them out a little bit more moving forward, because Colin Snyder has been able to do a solid job for the team. Gabe Spire has been someone that I've been impressed by as well. Now, when you get into the likes of Taylor Cicado, Edward Bazardo, that's a little bit of an issue. And for the Texas Rangers, this has been a bullpen that has been honestly a little bit better than I expected. I had no expectations whatsoever for the likes of Robert Garcia, Chris Martin, but both of these guys have supplied you with a sub-3 ERA. Luke Jackson has been solid in the closer's role, and Bobby Miller, Sean Armstrong, they've been nice shrewd ads. Has really been the issue for the Texas Rangers. This team is not scoring whatsoever. Entered into yesterday having played just 9 overs thus far this season, and for the Rangers, dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, despite the fact that Wyatt Langford is putting together a relatively nice start to the season for the team, as he has supplied the team with 6 home runs. He's done a good job of being able to find a way on with a 370 on base, but you've got Jake Berger, Marcus Semien, along Jock Peterson, only into yesterday, hitting below a 275 with regards to on base, below the Medell sign of 200 with regards to average. Not really a lot of power out of any of these guys. Corey Seager being on the injured list has been hurting them quite a bit. Josh Young doing a solid job hitting about a 275, and Josh Smith, the other Josh, has been able to about 300 as well, but has been very tough on that side of things, and I do think that that's going to be a little bit of an issue against a Seattle Mariners team that has been a top 6 team in terms of runs per game away from them. Seattle, I don't think a lot of people know this, that ballpark actually suppresses offense more than Coors Field elevates offense, but despite that, big jumper, Cal Raleigh, 10 home runs as far this season. He's up to about a 340 on base. Now, you've still got a few guys that are struggling for the team. Rowdy Tellez, Luke Raley, Julio Rodriguez, all giving you a batting average of a 212 or less, and Rodriguez does have 4 home runs, but you expect a little bit more there. Randy Arozarena, 360 on base, but only hitting about a 210 himself. But Ori Polanco, how about hitting north of 375 going into yesterday with 9 home runs in his first 73 at-bats? Certainly we'll see a little bit of a fall off there, but Seattle has been rock solid on the road, but the Rangers team has been able to do a nice job of suppressing offense at home. That said, I do think that the Mariners find a way to get the job done and continue to hold down what has been a struggling Rangers lineup. Sub I tell it an 8.2, like the under for the Mariners, 108 to a minus 135 on the money line, 975, 976 on the betting board. The Baltimore Orioles are going to be playing us the Kansas City Royals. Chris with Gay Bubich is on the bump for the Royals, and Tomoyuki Sugano is on the bump for Baltimore. For Baltimore, they're slim favorites, anywhere between minus 108 to a minus 115, and anywhere between even money to a minus 105 is that number on Kansas City with 8.5 the total. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. For the Royals, I set them as the slimmest of underdogs at a plus 103. Right now, if you're taking a look at laying a run half in this game, you'd be able to get as high as a plus 185 on the Kansas City Royals run line. That's honestly where I'd be looking right now. To plus 175 or higher, we'll be looking there. Personally, I'm just hoping that we can get some plus money on the Kansas City Royals, because I'd be willing to take a shot on the money line there. And frankly, whichever team becomes the underdog, that's the team that I'm going to be landing on with this tight of a spread. And for Chris with the K Bubich, I've been very impressed by him this season. A former first-round pick that prior to the season, it looked like he was just going to be forever a flopperoonie, but 225 ERA, 289 fielding independent after a really good year last year in the bullpen, and the strikeout numbers have been good. 9.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's keeping the ball in the yard, giving up 2 home runs in 36 innings across his 6 starts as far this season. Coming off a little bit of a rough outing against the Houston Astros, but honestly, when he has been on the road, he has been pretty rock solid, even against the New York Yankees, giving up just 3 runs against that great lineup. I feel like that says a little bit about him. Now, this has been a Royals lineup that they have been royally awful this far this season, as they are in the bottom 5 in terms of runs per game. Vinny Pasquantino right now leading the way with 4 home runs entering into yesterday's rough. Bobby Witt Jr. has been fine at moving the line, 400 on base, but you expected a little bit more than 3 home runs out of him. Salvador Perez at 280 on base with 2 home runs. You need to be getting a little bit more there. And then likes of a Michael Massey, MJ Melendez, so I'm pretty sure that they just sent down to the minors, because I have not seen him in quite some time, and Neo has been a big giant fade, to say the least. Hunter Renfroe, like so many guys that just have not been able to give you good at bats. Jonathan India has yet to really show his worth for this team, as he has, I don't think, hit a home run this far this season. So, that's been rough. And for the Baltimore Orioles, this has been a lineup that has left something to be desired as well. Gunnar Henderson, it's not giving you a lot of power in a 270 on base. Ryan Mountcastle barely hitting above a 200. Hudson Kierstead hitting right around about a 200 himself. Adley Rutschman has been dealing with injury, and when he's been out there, he's been a little bit tough himself. I actually like what I'm seeing out of Ryan O'Hearn. 6 home run season yesterday. He's been hitting above a 300. Jackson Holliday starting to round into form, even though not a ton of power out of him. Cedric Mullins a 400 on base, so do like to see that. And for the Royals, I'm starting to feel a little bit better about this bullpen because you've got Carlos Aceves, Lucas Ursech, a really good 8th and 9th inning duo. John Schreiber has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Anel Zerpa has been a little bit rough to begin the season, but for the Kansas City Royals, even Daniel Lynch has been able to provide some good long relief. And for the Baltimore Orioles, Ynier Cano, Felix Bautista, one of the best 1-2 punches that you're going to find in all of baseball. But what do you get before that is a question mark, because you've got a guy, Tamayuki Sugano, who's been not necessarily able to get a lot of swings and misses. I will say, in his last start, he actually had 8 strikeouts after, in his first 5 starts, he had a combined 9 strikeouts. So I thought that was very interesting, to say the least, for Mr. Sugano, a 3 ERA, but a 5.12 fielding dependent. He has been giving up about a home run per 9 innings. Good news is, gets to go up against the Kansas City Royals here, but have to have some trepidation there. And when you do get into the guys like Keegan Aiken, he can be a relatively solid long guy for the team. Brian Baker has been a little bit up and down. You just take a look at this overall bullpen of the Baltimore Orioles, and they've been neither great nor terrible. If you look at their overall ERA, it is about a 4.74, but again, those top flight guys are solid. Gregory Soto is much to blame for what we've seen out of this bullpen thus far, but if you are able to get plus money on either of these teams, that's where I'm going to be taking a look at in terms of money line. And I do think that for the Orioles, they're starting to pick it up a little bit with regards to their offense, and I do think that the Royals are going to start to see a little bit of positivity as well. I did so I tell it at 8.6, so I'm going to be looking at the over, and pretty much any team that becomes the underdog, that's what I'm going to be betting right on the money line. 977, 978 on the betting board. The Detroit Tigers hit the road. They're facing off against the LA Angels. The Professor, Kyle Hendricks, goes for the Angels. Captain Jack Flaherty's on the bump for Detroit, and Detroit is hanging between minus 165 to a minus 178 favorite, and between plus 145 to a plus 155 is that number on Los Angeles. 8 is the total. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. And for the Tigers, I did set them as a favorite of minus 148. So getting a plus 150 or higher, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Halos on the money line. I recognize that the Professor Kyle Hendricks has been getting schooled quite a bit, but for Jack Flaherty, he's been much better when he's been with the Detroit Tigers rather than any other time. It feels like in his career, say it's maybe like the back half of the 2019 season with the St. Louis Cardinals. You look at his overall tenure with the Tigers, so this excludes the starts that he made with the Dodgers last season. 304 ERA, 329 fielding independent, getting 11 strikeouts, so about 2 walks per 9 innings, but has had the propensity to give up the deep ball, giving up 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, and that's the one thing that the Angels are doing. Now, Mike Trout, it looks like, is injured once again, so that's not great, to say the least, and where have we seen that before? But, you still have quite a few guys that are nice boppers that are going to be able to give you some good power for this team. Taylor Ward is hitting right in that neighborhood of about a 200, even a little bit lower than that, but he and Jorge Soler both will be able to fly 6 home runs. Logan O'Hoppy's been really good, 9 home runs in his first 93 at-bats, giving north of a 330 on base. Kyron Paris has seen a fall off recently, but he's still been able to give you 5 bombs in his first 80 or so at-bats. You're not getting back Zach Neto, who's been able to move the line a little bit for the team. And for the Detroit Tigers, this has been a better lineup than what we saw a season ago, especially with Spencer Torkelson giving 9 home runs, north of a 320 on base. Riley Green is rounded into form. He and Kerry Carpenter both hitting about a 262, 265, combined 13 home runs between those two guys. And Javi Baez has been actually useful for the team this season. His glove has been solid. He's been getting on base. You'll love to see that. Josh Young has given you nothing whatsoever, but that said, Trey Sweeney, he's been able to do a solid job. I'll be able to give you a bit of something. Dylan Dingler, he's hitting darn near 300 as well. And for the Angels, you do have to have your issues with this bullpen as well. Currently dead last in the American League in terms of ERA, as you've had Reed Detmers just spit the bit for the team so many times. Now, if you could get to Kenley Jansen, he's a relatively good closer, and Brock Burke showed some worth towards back half of the season last year, but that's been a little bit of an issue. Ryan Zephyrian has been able to give you some okay innings, but man, that's been a little bit of an issue for this team. And when it comes to, once again, Kyle Hendricks, it's a guy that is going to be pitching to a whole bunch of contact in this one, and that doesn't necessarily lend itself the world's greatest to this Angels Stadium. 665 ERA, a 602 fielding independent, but I do think that he's going to be able to round into a little bit of better form after he got completely destroyed by the Minnesota Twins in his last start. And quite frankly, this has been a guy in Hendricks that has given up 3 runs or more in each out of his last 3 starts, but I do think that he finds it a little bit more here. I do think that Flaherty is going to be giving up a little bit too much of the deep ball, so I did did set my total at an 8.7. Here at the 8, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over. And with the Angels, I'm willing to take that plus money on the money line and wrap things up with 979, 980 on the betting board. It is the Athletics on the road against the Miami Marlins, as Max Meyer, we know, is going to be getting the start for the Marlins, and it's old TBD who's on the bump for the Oakland A's / the Sacramento A's. So this game is presently off the board. When I was looking a little bit before, it was showing Osvaldo Bido being the projected starter for the Athletics, but I think that he was a projected starter like 24 hours ago as well. So that makes things very interesting. And currently I'm actually seeing an ESPN bet price with the Miami Marlins being a minus 125 favorite and a total of 8.5 with the over at a minus 105, under minus 115, and with the A's at plus 105. That's in line with what I've placed the price at. I set Max Meyer as minus 129 favorite, so I would be willing to lay that minus 125 money line if you do get Bido versus Max Meyer. And Meyer has been just really good for the team. I recognize they got lit up a little bit in his last start against the Seattle Mariners, but that said, this has been a guy that has given up 300 runs or fewer in all but one of his starts thus far this season. He's been able to do a really good job of being able to get swings and misses. He has been able to give you well north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's not issuing a lot of walks right now. He's only been giving up right in the neighborhood about 3 walks per 9 innings, as well as done a good job of being able to stay within himself. And then for Osvaldo Bido, I've liked what I've seen out of him over the last 2 seasons. This dates all the way back to his Pittsburgh Pirates days, as for Bido, he doesn't necessarily give you like a whole bunch of swing and miss or anything like that. For his career, only about 8 punch-outs per 9 innings, and this year down to about 5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's done a good job throughout his career holding down the fort. Been a little bit uncharacteristic of him to give up 6 home runs in 31 1/3 innings thus far this season, but 2 runs or fewer, allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. Numbers are very much warped because he was the one guy that the Texas Rangers were able to hit about a week and a half ago, but that said, he's been relatively solid. And for the A's, it does feel like their bullpen is starting to round into form a little bit more. You've got Mason Miller, who's been one of the better closers that you're going to find in all of baseball, as he's been just so dominant, and you've been able to have a few guys that have been able to step up. Justin Sterner has been really good in this bullpen as well. Now, when you get to the likes of TJ McFarland and company, that's been a big giant issue, as it's really an all or nothing bullpen with regards to this team. And for the Miami Marlins fan, this has not been a great bullpen. The offense has honestly not been too bad. This despite the fact that you don't necessarily have a ton of power on this lineup. Matt Burfitz has been able to give you 7 home runs, and past that, you really don't have a lot of guys that are able to crank a yard. But I mean, Xavier Edwards does a nice job of being able to move the line. He had a cycle last season. You've got Dave Myers, who entered into yesterday hitting about a 350. You even take a look at the backup infielder in Javier Sonja. He's been able to give you like a 300 as well. So you've got a lot of guys that are moving the line. Kyle Stowers is giving you darn near 400 on base. He's starting to be able to supply a little bit of power as well. And then for the A's, you've had Tyler Soderstrom be absolutely tremendous for the team. Entered into yesterday with about a 350 on base, 9 home runs this season. Brent Rooker had a little bit of a tough time getting on base to begin the season, but now he's up to 7 home runs. Shea Langolaris has been able to give you 6 bombs as well. So I do like what these guys are bringing to the table. Gio Urshela has had a little bit of a rough start to the season, but I do feel like he's going to be able to round into form. And I believe that JJ Bleday is a former Miami Marlin. He was able to go yard yesterday as well. So it does lead to a very interesting circumstance, especially with the Marlins just not having any sort of good bullpen pitching whatsoever. Calvin Fauché, after a rough start to the season, does appear to be rounding into a little bit of better form. And you've got the Anthony Bender, Anthony Veziano, who have not been too terrible for the team. Lake Picard, as a long guy, has probably been your best relief piece, but when you get into the likes of Jesus Tinoco, George Soriano, guys like this, they have just been absolutely awful thus far this season. So if you do indeed get Max Meyer going up against Osvaldo Bido, I did set my total 7.9, so at an 8.5 especially, I'd be willing to take a shot on the under, and with the Marlins would be willing to lay up to a minus 128 on that money line. And that'll wrap things up for the Saturday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to Andrew Caley of Covers for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'll be with you guys every single day throughout the baseball regular season. So I'm back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.